This video is for educational purposes only. Viewer discretion is advised.
This is so crazy to see.
You don't have arthritis, you don't have cancer, you don't have all these health disorders. What you have is chronic.
Welcome back to the channel. Here we go.
Paul Evans's?
No.
He ended up in Dubai with pancreatitis, and it was so bad. This is from drinking and partying and stuff like that. His pancreatitis was so bad that he was put into an induced coma.
Oh, wow.
While he was in the induced coma, he lived an entire life in Singapore.
Boy.
He could tell you the brand of toothpaste that he used every morning, the colors of the ties that he needed to wear. He could tell you the route that he drove to work. And while he was at work, he was part of a team that was building out a new virtual reality game. So he would enter a virtual reality game in this thing, and he could tell you everything, every single detail. It's in his book, and tell you all of the details about how his life unfolded in Singapore, the car that he drove, where he went for dinner on an evening time. And this is while he's in this induced coma. So his family goes out to see him in the real world, and they're looking at him in the hospital bed. Now, in his life in Singapore, his father, so he buries his father in his dream world. And in the real world, his father is looking at his son laid in this hospital bed. And there was one day where his dad was looking at him, and he could see that his son was crying. His son was weeping whilst in a coma.
Oh.
They think that that was his actual father watching real Paul cry because the dream version of him was burying his father in the dream world. He continues to work. He's got his life. He goes through... there's some complications with the virtual reality world that he's getting into, and they're really trying to push the limits of what they can do with this technology. And one day he gets trapped inside the simulation. So this is like Inception. This is like he's two levels deep now.
Inception.
Yes. So he's two levels deep, and he's trapped inside, and all of the people outside of in the dream, outside of the virtual reality world, are trying to get him out. And he says it was like being inside of a membrane, and he could feel his hands. He was sort of running his hands across this membrane, trying to find a way to get out. And he said this went on for days. He was locked inside of this thing for days. And then eventually he managed to find a tiny little seam, a crease, and he could sort of pull his hands through. And when he did that, he woke up from his coma in the real world. But the weird thing, and I spoke to him about this, I was like, you do know that you're going to have to bury your dad twice. This is a guy who lost a person who they really had in a dream, and then came back to find them still alive.
Wow.
But you're now going to have to go through this again. At some point, his father's older than him, and he's going to have to go through that. And this near-death experience, is it a way that the brain... I asked him a lot about the science behind this, which I get, it's kind of like a near-death, it's like an NDE kind of thing, right? It seems like, at least for the induced coma, and maybe for head trauma stuff as well, it's the brain trying to cope and protect what's happening. But yeah, that story of your man, it does not surprise me. It seems completely unreal.
I'm not kidding you. Just do it for 7 days. Do it from the time you hear this podcast, or you guys can start tomorrow. Do it from the time you hear this podcast for 7 days. You will never miss it. It will become your new drug of choice. Because what happens is it raises the dopamine, it improves your mood, it improves your emotional state, your diaphragm massages your intestines, it actually gets your motility in your intestines going. You elevate the amount of dopamine and serotonin in the body, and you flood the blood with oxygen. So for hours after you've done a short round of breath work, you feel amazing. The other thing you do is you make sure that you do it within 30 minutes of waking every day. And the reason for that is your circadian clock will get timed to that breath work. When you change time zones, as soon as you do breath work, your body will know this is the time to wake up.
Is this before my coffee?
Before your coffee.
Do you have coffee, by the way?
I do. Yeah, I don't have any issues with coffee. So I'll go outside, I'll do 3 rounds of 30 breaths with a breath hold in between, and then I'll go back inside and have my coffee.
Sometimes the truth is not so easy to hide. Every so often, if you just look at something with open eyes, you can see where they got sloppy with their storytelling. I focus a lot of my attention on America because its history is easy to refute. Another place where the architecture just doesn't match up to its history is Australia. And I say this with certainty because the history of Australia is so clear and so well documented. A bunch of prisoners were brought over there by a bunch of military from the UK, and they created settlements. So the real question to ask when you look at the continent of Australia is who the fuck was building all these goddamn cathedrals, city halls, and massive buildings all across the country? It certainly wasn't a bunch of prisoners, and it certainly wasn't a bunch of UK military from back in the 1800s. I don't think so. You see, I am a Tartarianist, and I can't help but look at all of these buildings that are scattered across the world and point directly at the long-lost Tartarian Empire. In certain places like Australia, it's clear that 2 or 3 boatloads of prisoners and British military did not go there and start quarrying stones and shaping stones to build large cathedrals and city halls, hotels, and all these other type of buildings which are scattered across the country in a way that literally makes no sense. And that's where you can look at evidence of the lies that exist in our history, trying to perpetuate the myth that horse and buggy motherfuckers were out there building these type of buildings, all to just erase the fact that Tartaria existed. They just want to gaslight us and make us think that we're crazy for thinking anything outside of the rhetoric, anything outside of their story, their history. If you've reached part 18 of this series, you know exactly what the fuck I think. Everything we know is a lie, and they keep lying to us, and I'm not having it no more. I hope you aren't either. I'm doing what I can to point out that we live in a world that's just been fabricated, a storyline for us to read, and that's why I keep on showing you these images from across the world, building after building, cathedrals, churches, city halls, because it's all a lie, and I need you to see that, and then maybe I can sleep at night. Maybe I know that I've done my job if I've helped wake somebody up to the facts of the world that we really live in. Like here in the actual land of Oz, where I'm pulling back the curtain to expose the wizard and all of his tricks.
A journalist at Wired just exposed Google for changing people's search queries. Not changing your search results, but actually changing what you're searching for to maximize profits.
The accusation has now been made publicly that the company will simply alter results of user queries so that those results receive high-value ads. That is insane. That means that every single time you run a search, Google can secretly change what you are searching for to include any keyword it wants, which then returns advertisements from particular companies who just maybe happen to be the ones that pay the most money.
So I was watching this YouTube video from this account, Upper Echelon, who, yes, is currently at 666,000 subscribers. So go subscribe to help them out, get them off that number. I'm going to show you what they discovered. And then I'm going to show you how to bypass Google and find anything that's ever been on the web, no matter if it's been taken down or not. And you'll see why I say that in just a second.
Looking back from here, knowing what we do now, according to Megan Gray at Wired Magazine, well, the picture substantially changes. Here's the article. Obviously, I'll have it linked down below in the description for anyone interested. And here's a segment that explains why this kind of revelation in particular is a very, very big deal.
So, seeing as I like to check sources for myself, I went to Wired.com and searched out Megan Gray.
They don't want you to know this. What if I told you there's a hidden library that holds everything from the past, present, and future? It's called the Akashic Records. Imagine a database where every thought, action, and experience of every soul is recorded. The Akashic Records exist on a non-physical plane known as the etheric plane. And according to recent scientific research, our universe has been found to show elements of existing as a giant hologram, with every bit of information encoded in the fabric of space-time. But it gets even deeper. The records hold the secrets to advanced technologies and forgotten knowledge. Could this be how the ancient Egyptians built their pyramids? As so many ancient civilizations seem to have wisdom far beyond their time. The Akashic Records are said to be accessed through deep meditation, specific spiritual practices, and sometimes when dreaming. People who have accessed these records claim to have a deeper understanding of their purpose in life. The records are talked about by the ancient Egyptians, Mayans, Indians, Greeks, and the ancient Sumerians. They all speak of the concept of a universal record-keeping system.
Who really controls the world? Depending on your perspective, the answer might be megabanks like JP Morgan, asset managers like BlackRock, tech companies like Microsoft, or unaccountable and unelected international organizations like the World Economic Forum. Maybe it's all of the above. But what if I told you that there's an entity that's bigger than all these institutions? After all, these institutions seem to be on the same page when it comes to things like CBDCs, digital IDs, and smart cities. Well, that is not a coincidence. So, today, we're going to tell you about this entity and reveal who's really in control. Believe it or not, but the entity that seems to be coordinating all the world's most powerful institutions is none other than the United Nations, or UN.
They could leave Earth, they wouldn't need bunkers. Don't you think? There are things that can make you go, what is this place? More than 25 years since the ISS, quote-unquote, entered orbit, and more than 100 eclipses on those 25 years. Yet not a single video of those eclipses was filmed from the ISS. The moon landing was an IQ test, and most people failed. The exploration of the moon stopped because it was impossible to continue the hoax without being ultimately discovered. Of course, they ran out of pre-filmed these episodes. No man has ever ascended higher than 300 miles, if that high, on above Earth's surface. No man has ever orbited or landed on or walked upon the moon in any publicly known space program. And if you doubt this, please explain how astronauts walks upon moon. Enclosed in a space suit, in full sunlight, absorbing a minimum 256 degrees of heat, surrounded by the vacuum. It is not from me. I didn't make this story. William Cooper says this. Search it.
It's a beetle that they find in the wild, and this beetle might be the reason we're able to make flying cars, flying everything, literally levitating hoverboards, all of that shit.
Okay, let me see.
So, it's the same scientist that he took a beetle wing, he placed it on top of another beetle wing, and it like bounced off, almost as if it was a magnet.
Oh, okay.
Check this out.
Oh, maybe I have seen this video.
This is a real video.
Today we're
he
going
just
to
tested
get
it.
one of these shells to hover over the other one. The original of this video.
Yeah, let me put it up. So this is that scientist you put on top. And it floats on top. It levitates on top. Look, he's gonna do it right now.
Yeah.
Literally, there's no effects, no nothing. Look, you see it? It's like hovering. Look, you see it? It's hovering.
Shit.
It's literally hovering, bro.
That's
wild.
That's straight off, like you said, frequency, right?
So, what if you use a microscope and go deep into what the wings are made of? The pattern is what? Is the same geometrical.
And I want you to just do a supercharged cabbage soup diet for 4 days. But what I want you to do is add some super ingredients that will activate a hormone called intestinal alkaline phosphatase, IAP. Why do I want you to do that? It turns out that IAP is one of the better hormones that repairs damage to the gut wall. So the cruciferous vegetables are good at this, but onions, garlic, and turmeric are super ways to increase IAP. And don't forget to put in black pepper. Why? There's a compound in black pepper that activates all these compounds so that you absorb them even better. So get out your regular cabbage soup diet, throw in some root vegetables like Japanese radishes, like carrots, like sweet potatoes, turnips, and eat that for 4 days. That's your meal.
And tell us your name and what you do for a living.
Hi, I'm Maxwell Ahin, and I am a physicist, inventor, entrepreneur, and, well, I guess change maker. I'm 13, and I feel like I can change the world, and I've already started my positive impact on it.
What have you done? How have you changed the world so far?
So aside from inventing a whole bunch of different stuff that probably won't matter now, but my most recent thing, which has gotten me a little bit of attention online, is my energy device, where I extract electromagnetic energy from everything around us and convert it into electrical energy. In other words, a stream of unlimited energy. So, you know.
Right. Have you, when I mean you, the CIA, the United States government, or any foreign power, what right do you have to do what you do in other countries? What
National
right?
security interest.
But that's a divine right, isn't it? Because the people that you do it to have no say in it.
Yeah, well, that's just tough. We are going to protect ourselves, and we're going to go on protecting ourselves because we end up protecting all of you. And let's not forget that.
Right, no, I won't.
We'll intervene whenever we decide it's in our national security interest to intervene. And if you don't like it, lump it. Get used to it, world. We're not going to put up with nonsense. And if our interests are threatened, we're going to do it.
If doctors couldn't handle anything, and here this little priest had come out of the woodwork and handled my lead poisoning like he did handle anything, and here this little priest had come out of the woodwork and handled my lead poisoning like he did and some other health issues, and I went back to the doctors to tell them there was no interest. They weren't interested. That floored me. So I said to them, what else are you not telling us? And that meant I had to go back into history and find out where they'd made a mess of it. And as the further I got back in history through the 1800s, I began to realize that, look, you know, you compare a hospital today with all their fancy white uniforms and all their multi-millions of dollars of equipment, and what did they know back then? What were they doing? Guessing? I started finding books that were published by doctors through the 1800s, books that they read and books that they learned from. And lo and behold, out of every single book were deworming programs, parasite programs. Our doctors in those days did autopsies, and they found parasites. And I looked at that and I got a hold of doctors and they said, no, we don't have parasites today. So we started to search for parasite programs just to see what was going on, to see if maybe something was happening that we really didn't understand. So I did myself first. And lo and behold, I got 8 and 10-inch critters out of me. They were white. First of all, they were in the toilet water and they were all bunched up. I thought it was mucus. Until, just for a curiosity, I threw some hot water in the toilet to warm it up and then went and gosh, they strung out and they were swimming all over. We're now doing pictures in color out of clinics where you go potty on a special pot with a screen in it and they take pictures of the parasites they get out of you on these different deworming programs. A woman got 18-inch long critters out of her that were so thick she couldn't get them into a top of a juice bottle. They're usually translucent, they're usually white, and there's some of them that look like tarantula spiders, some of them look like grasshoppers, some of them look like little tiny miniature sailboats, some of them look like little spacecraft. There, this is really strange stuff. I have never yet dewormed anyone where they didn't tell me, hey, I feel 25% better. When you got halitosis, you're loaded, because that's worm urine and worm droppings that you're breathing out. So it's no wonder your breath's bad. When they pee, that's called ammonia. So just go to a doctor, have a blood test, and see what level of ammonia is in your blood. If you have ammonia in your blood, that's called worm urine. You get a headache. You got the headache because the worms are all peeing, trying to get you to eat something else. They're trying to make you sick so you'll get off of what you're doing and start eating. So you take some arginine and orthogonine, in a matter of 20 minutes, if the headache's gone, you've neutralized the worm urine and you know that you're loaded. All children that have little tiny pimples on the backs of their arms, or little tiny pimples here on the edges of their cheeks have 5 varieties of critters in them. 5 varieties. It's time to deworm and it's time to get them out.
Your problem's not that you're poor, it's just you suck at being poor. If you want nice shit, you're just gonna have to take some old shit and make it nice shit. Being completely useless is a luxury of the rich. And you're not rich, you're poor. If you want to be poor and just have old garbage, then fine, you're good to go. But if you're gonna sit around and cry about how you have nothing nice, but then you're doing nothing to have anything nice, that's your own fault.
What's a scam that's become so normalized that we don't even realize it's a scam anymore?
Your entire fucking life. 1 through 7, you're in a hypnotic state, getting taught the thoughts that your parents were thinking, usually like 30 years ago. And depending on where your parents are in life, that's probably where you're heading, because that's something called programming. If you're depressed, well, it's probably because your parents were depressed. And now you're going to go find depression. You're literally going to seek a depressed life because your parents had a depressed life, because that is the circuitry in your brain. Now, let's assume you went to a school and you learned a bunch of things. I bet you they made you read books that weren't really useful for your life. They didn't teach you the thoughts that you needed to be thinking. They taught you a bunch of nonsense. Like, I remember reading the book about Old Yeller. I didn't really learn shit about life reading that book, but apparently that was a book that we were supposed to read. And then the rest of the educational system, just kind of botched and useless. If you graduate high school, well, guess what? You either go ahead and create something of your own by failing and 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 finally getting it right, and then getting really right at it, and then getting really good at it, to the point where you're going to be able to teach other people at it. Or you ended up going to college, where you learned a bunch of information that really didn't make sense. So, like, the average conversation I have with a person that's also in the health and wellness field, it doesn't really make sense to me, because I'm like, you didn't read any of these books, and all the information you're talking about doesn't make sense. Like when somebody that says type 2 diabetes can't be reversed naturally, that makes no sense. It's just obviously a better monetary choice to give a person a surgery, because it's a hospital, where they feed you shit food, and then you get sick, then you go to the hospital, then they give you more drugs to make you feel better. Yeah, it's a little fucked up. So, biggest scam in our world is the entire life. Every single thing that we do is revolving around money. Guess what? You wear clothes. They probably costed money. You drive a car. That costs money. You have to have car insurance. Literally. Every single thing that I can possibly think of is a scam, so I can literally go on all day long. Like a sausage, egg, and cheese McMuffin. Why does it have 92% of a daily value of cholesterol based on a 2,000 calorie diet, assuming that a woman doesn't eat 2,000 calories, that's more than 100% of her daily value of cholesterol, and it's going to oxidize her LDL and go to her brain and cause problems? A little weird. Anyways, what can you learn if you listen this far? Read a shit ton of books. Read so many goddamn books to the point that everybody that's in your life falls out of your life because they just don't get you anymore. Or actually, you don't get them because you're just confused why they complicate everything when things aren't complicated. People talk about the Matrix, right? I'm going to leave with you with this one. We're in the fucking Matrix right now. Every single person that's watching a video online is in the damn Matrix. There is no leaving the fucking Matrix. It is a game that you're playing. We're all playing. It's called sounds that may or may not be valuable to your ears, and then using those sounds to interface your reality by looking at shit. It's not what you see, it's what you know about what you see, because that's how you feel. It's like when I look at a phone, I'm like, alright, I'm going to make a TikTok. I'm going to talk about some shit that may or may not be relevant to a person, and some people might listen to it. It's either going to change a person's life or not change their life, and that's my alarm to go off to make myself breathe, because I need to be reminding myself to be conscious. Because if you're not breathing, then you're not conscious. You ever notice that thing? How many breaths did you take in the past 30 seconds? You have no clue. How many times did I blink since watching this video? Probably 0. Read a shit ton of books. You want to change anything or not be scammed or screwed over in your life? Read a shit ton of books. Because you were taught a thought and you're thinking it now, and every single thing that we're taught is just how to be a good human being that doesn't change the world, that just shows up every day and does the same thing over and over. So follow this.
The legend himself, Rob Schneider, absolutely obliterated woke insanity at this venue that he was speaking at, and he went so hard, okay? He roasted the woke nonsense that is infecting our society so hard that he even got kicked out of this event, all right? He made a bunch of wokesters at the event super duper mad. We do have some video that we're going to be checking out about all of that. He made a bunch of wokesters on social media super mad by what he said at the event, and this whole situation is blowing up into a completely dramatic situation because now even the venue themselves are apologizing for Rob Schneider, admitting that they kicked him out, and they give an apology that is complete BS. So we're going to be jumping into all of the insanity here. Rob Schneider continues to prove that he is hilarious, that he is based, and the wokesters can't stand him. So let's jump into all of the nonsense here. Rob Schneider yanked off stage mid-set for being too crass. The annual gala was a fundraiser for the Hospitals of Regina Foundation, and offended attendees felt his content was inappropriate for an event that supported a hospital, according to The Hollywood Reporter. Representatives from the Hospitals of Regina Foundation asked Schneider to leave the stage, and reports indicate he complied right away, according to The Hollywood Reporter. So right there, I mean, he's already off to a losing start because he is doing this in Canada at this event, and, you know, free speech is basically dead in Canada at this point, so it's not not really much of a surprise that all these people were getting super duper offended, just clutching their pearls at the jokes that he was saying during this entire thing. We do have the event themselves apologizing for this, which is just wild stuff. So let's check out this video here.
The Hospitals of Regina Foundation issued a statement following a controversial performance from comedian Rob Schneider at a fundraising event held last weekend. The organization said, while we recognize that in a free and democratic society, individuals are entitled to their views and opinions, and that comedy is intended to be edgy, the content, positions, and opinions expressed during Mr. Schneider's set do not align with the values of our foundation and team. We do not condone, accept, endorse, or share Mr. Schneider's positions as expressed during his comedy set, and acknowledge that in this instance, the performance did not meet the expectations of our audience and our team.
Holy crap. So basically, they're just flat out admitting here that they only support a free and democratic society when the values and worldviews that are being expressed by the individual align with their values and worldviews. And if they don't, which Rob Schneider's clearly did not, because he was going after woke nonsense and all sorts of other things that we're going to be checking out in a second here, including the alphabet community and all of that type of stuff. So basically, because of that, because his worldviews did not align with theirs, they kicked him. Even though they said that they support a free and democratic society and individuals are entitled to their views and opinions. Apparently not so much when those views and opinions do not align with theirs, which is
If you flip the human nervous system upside down, it looks like a tree growing out of a seed, bearing the fruit of the heart, which looks suspiciously like a piece of fruit hanging in a tree. That tree growing out of the seed also supports the fruit of the Spirit, and the cycle of the seed looks suspiciously like the parable of the sower. 12 pair of cranial nerves to edify the body, controlled by the mind. 12 disciples sent out in pairs to edify the body, controlled by the head. 12 disciples with one removed. 12 tribes with one removed. Adam's 12 pair of ribs with one removed to make Eve. Jesus pierced in his side to bring the church to life. Are you starting to see it? I often wonder why God made me a medical doctor. And then I start to see the gospel in the anatomy and physiology of our bodies, and it all starts to make sense. Allow me to elaborate. If the husband is the head and the wife is the body, then the husband is the brain and the wife is the heart. And so the husband is responsible for thinking, taste, touch, sight, smell, and hearing, and the wife is responsible for feeling, following the brain, and doing. All you have to do is study the central and peripheral nervous systems, and then the somatic and autonomic nervous systems, and you will know exactly how your marriage is supposed to be structured, and why you guys can't get along for the life of you. It's the heart arguing with the mind, the rod arguing with the staff, the law arguing with grace, the circulatory system arguing with the nervous system. Is it possible that we are complementary systems, each with our own beautiful, necessary, and different roles? God already gave us all the answers. It's just that we are blind to the fact that all creation testifies. The head has all 5 senses. The husband is the central nervous system and the wife is the body or the peripheral nervous system. This is why women are more emotional and men are more logical. This is why the Proverbs 31 woman is off doing things like the body, while the husband is at the city gates with the elders getting more sensory input so that he can tell the body what to go do. And since this is a mirror of Jesus and the church, anything you say that the wife is not supposed to submit to the husband in, you are therefore inferring that the church doesn't have to submit to Christ in that same thing. So be very careful with your feminist pushback, at least if you claim to be a Christian. And for the men, understand that the reason she won't submit to you is because you're not submitting to Christ. Fix your relationship with Jesus and he will fix your relationship with your wife. The Bible says wives submit to their husbands in all things, just like the body submits to the brain in all things. And the curse of Genesis 3 is essentially that the heart will resent the mind and try to become the mind. Thinking with their hearts, making emotional-based decisions disguised as logical ones. Doesn't that sound like every marriage you've ever seen? The equal and opposite functions of the sympathetic division versus the parasympathetic division of the autonomic nervous system tells us a lot. And the deeper I go on this division between the head and the body, the more sense it starts to make, all the way down to the action potentials of the nervous system, competitive enzymatic inhibition, catabolic biochemical pathways, the central dogma of protein synthesis, and everything else you can imagine. Literally all creation testifies. A matter of fact, if you look at the human body, the legs look like roots, the base looks like a trunk, the arms look like branches, And we have this fruit of knowledge on the top with the fruit of life, our heart, in the middle. This might even explain the Trinity, that the Holy Spirit is the heart of God and Christ is the mind of God, and God the Father is the entire body. Or maybe Christ is the heart and the Holy Spirit is the mind? What do you think? Which might explain our metaphysical anatomy of body, soul, and spirit. The Bible says the mind that is governed by the flesh is death, but the mind governed by the Spirit is life and peace. The mind governed by the flesh is hostile to God. It does not submit to God's law. This is also how God feels about a wife that won't submit to her husband, or a husband that allows himself to submit to his wife. It's the body leading the head, or the heart overtaking the mind. Tonight at 7:30 Central Standard Time, I'll be starting a series of Bible studies on this topic. Just click this link right here at the top of my profile, click on the War Within Uncensored, and pick any package you want. I'll see you on the Zoom call tonight.
Let me explain to you how the system works. So the first thing is they want us to be in jobs, J-O-Bs, because there they can transduce our most valuable resource, which is our time on the planet. Our effort, but our time on the planet. They can take that non-renewable resource, by the way, and transduce it into a debt instrument, Federal Reserve notes. Things they're not actually worth nothing. They're actually debt instruments. They're IOUs. And the rate of exchange for our time is so low, such that they can make a great deal of profit off of leveraging our time so that the companies make money and we make very little for what our time is really worth. Then do they pay you your full measure? No, they take half of it out as withholding on taxes that are unconstitutionally levied against us to take away even more of that labor transduced into worthless units, only to return it over a year later after inflation has made it even less valuable. Then we spend what's left and have to pay an additional sales tax, 7 to 8, 9, 10%. And one of my favorites is that even before we get those dollars, they take our money and put it aside for a retire in an IRA or a 401k. And we think that someday in the future, the IRS will honor its word and that we'll get that money back without tax. And the IRS has stated plainly that they'll change those rules on a whim, even though they said they can't be changed. Even if they did honor their word, by the time you get it back, it won't have even made up the value that inflation was degrading it in the first place, and you've lost money. You might as well have just taken the tax hit. And then the pièce de résistance is that media cons us into thinking that we can have the riches of avarice by putting what's left of our money after all the expenses and taxes into a market that is designed to take our money and recycle it. And the best part about that is that we can't really deduct those losses more than $3,000 a year, and we will take up to 40% tax hit on the capital gains. Oh yes, and the more money you make, the more it's taxed. Does this seem like a fair system to you?
Hey, if you're still here, please do me a favor and hit the like and subscribe button so this video gets recommended to other people. Thanks. Alright, I hope you enjoyed our session. Please let me know your comments and
you see a car battery that has corrosion around it, which means that the alternator in that car is going to have trouble keeping that battery charged up. Well, the tooth just above it is attached to a muscle battery, but it also has corrosion, and thus it also has trouble keeping that battery charged up. And then as corrosion in either your car battery or your tooth gets worse over time, then it gets harder and harder and harder and harder to keep your battery packs charged up. And eventually, in the car battery, the corrosion will come outside the battery itself and start corroding through your battery cable, which now means you have a total short circuit and your car won't start. Process occurs in the body when the infection in the tooth moves out into the bone. So when you have infection in a bone around a tooth, it actually works just like a circuit breaker and takes down that circuit. And then the two circumstances in which that occurs is either a root canal tooth, which is, of course, a dead tooth. The problem is that now the tooth is dead and all dead tissue gets infected. The dentists are the only physicians that believe you can get away with leaving dead tissue in the body. No other doctor believes that. When it gets into the bone, it shuts off that circuit.
hand her the vessel. You see a space? The vessel comes to the port of the court. The vessel gets docked. Therefore, we put a docket number on it, docking the vessel. You pay $350 docking fee, and now you have a document. DOC, DOC, DOC. You see, we're using the terminology and bringing things into first-person knowledge now, so you're aware of what's happening. When the document comes to the port of the court, the document has a stamp on it. The stamp is autographed by the postmaster delivering the vessel to the port of the court, who also puts a stamp on and signs it. Therefore, we have postmaster to postmaster docking a vessel. The vessel is an independent. Now, this is something some of you know or don't know. All judges are actors. They do not become a judge until they autograph this document. If they autograph the stamp of this document, then they are the judge in the case. A judge who does not sign this document is not a judge. When you walk into the courtroom, the judge is up there and says, "Did you sign the paper?" The judge says, "No." That's not the judge. That's an actor. Who did sign your paper? The clerk of the court did. She's the judge. So you can say, "Judge, you're not on my plane. Get out of my courtroom."
Most people in Western countries, in the United States, in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Great Britain, et cetera, most people who lived in those countries 2 years ago got the COVID vax. That's just a fact. And maybe because of that fact, very few people want to talk about what that was. Not just what the vax itself was and what it may do to the human body and the human brain. Those are worthy conversations. Important conversations, necessary conversations, ignored conversations. But the bigger conversation is, why were governments across the West pulling out all stops to force people to take this compound that they called a vaccine? What was this? And what do we learn about the motives and the aims of those governments by their behavior around the vax? What do we learn? Because those countries, all of them, reveal that they were not in fact democracies. They were not free countries at all. They were something very different. And if you go back and you watch the tape and you watch how Western leaders talked about the COVID vaccine and about people who didn't want to get vaccinated, you learned a lot about them. In fact, it's not your body, your choice in their view. It's their body and their choice. And in no country was this clearer maybe than Canada, where the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau not only told people to get this drug, but attacked anyone who wouldn't as illegitimate, as evil, as a fifth column within the borders of Canada seeking to overthrow the democracy of Canada.
A free energy generator might not be so far-fetched after all. Check this out. This patent is called the Electric Pyramid Generator. And its purpose is to tap into the infinite sea of energy in the higher atmosphere at a given frequency of 83 kilohertz. There is 14 different references linked to this patent, and it was eyewitnessed by Walter Russell himself. And believe it or not, this is an open source patent that is being released to the general public to try to build for themselves. It even says so right in the patent. Be sure to like and share this video if you want to hear more details on how I plan to go about building this patent.
This is so crazy to see.
This is the bottom of the supply chain of your iPhone, of your Tesla, of your Samsung. I mean, I'm just naming those companies.
Right.
It's all of them, right? All of them. We're not just picking on them. And here's what you need to know, Joe, about this video. I was the first outsider to get into this mine. And that's why it's just a really short video that I was able to take. This is an industrial cobalt mine where there's not supposed to be one artisanal miner. Now, that's the term used for people who are just digging by hand, as opposed to tractors and excavators. There's not supposed to be one here. That's what the story is told at the top of the chain. This mine, and I can name it, it's called Shabara. There's not supposed to be one artisanal miner here, according to the consumer-facing tech companies and EV companies buying this cobalt. Lo and behold, I walk into this place and this is what I see. There's more than 15,000 human beings crammed into that pit.
You don't have arthritis, you don't have cancer, you don't have all these health disorders. What you have is chronic inflammation. To me at the time, inflammation was you sprain an ankle and it balloons up and gets red and it's sore and it's inflamed. And he says, no, he says inflammation is different than that.
We have so much inflammation in the body, and it comes out in illnesses. We go to a doctor with all these complaints, but a lot of it is silent inflammation, including my specialty, heart disease. Heart disease is an inflammatory process. So how do we reduce inflammation?
Inflammation is produced by neutrophils, which is a white blood cell. You have an injury, you have a damaged cell. And so these white blood cells come over and they encapsulate the damaged cell and they release reactive oxygen species, which rip electrons from the damaged cell, and that destroys the damaged cell.
White blood cells release free radicals at the injury site. They chew up any pathogens, bacteria, or dead cells. They clear the area. It's called the repair field. It's the place that needs to be repaired. Without earthing, some of the free radicals that are released into the repair field leak into the surrounding tissue.
If there's not enough free electrons there to reduce the remaining radicals, they're going to steal an electron from a healthy cell and in the process damage it. Then the message goes out to the immune system and another neutrophil does the same thing, eliminates that cell, and then you end up with a chain reaction.
And this can create chronic inflammation, silent inflammation. You may not even know it's there, and it continues for years.
If inflammation is the cause of all these health disorders, then I know that not enough grounding is the cause of inflammation, because if the body is grounded, you can't have inflammation.
You put the key lime with the coconut, the salt and the cayenne, and you repeat that 3 to 10 times a day. This gets rid of every disease and every issue. It also solves the #2 deficiency in the world, which is a magnesium deficiency. We know that magnesium helps to rebuild the skin, the eyes, the hair, the ears, the immune system. And the coconut oil is antibacterial, as well as the key lime is antibacterial, anti-yeast, anti-mold, anti-candida. So the more we consume this in chronicles of every couple hours, the more we're able to get rid of that stubborn yeast, mold, candida, excess heavy metal, the fat essentially that is surrounding our lower organs. This helps to heal your liver as well as your kidneys. As well, if you're having any kind of HEART issues, it's going to get rid of that as well, because remember, it always comes from excess yeast, mold, candida, or a combination of all of them growing inside of the gut, because all disease starts in the gut. According to Hippocrates, the strength of a man is in his gut, Job 40:16. So you heal the gut and you heal every issue. Remember, the gut is your nervous system, right? It's your immune system. It's where 90% of all of your serotonin is produced. So if your gut is full all the time, well, then guess what's going to happen? We're going to feel full, but like we're not full on health. We're full of disease. So disease equals excess stuck inside of the gut, and this is the fastest way, the key lime, coconut, salt, cayenne, to heal the gut, blood, brain barrier, which also helps to heal the blood. The life's force is in the blood, Leviticus 17:11, and this is how you heal. And that's why we made y'all a Bible health book.
First tests we did showed that it could work. So we began to think, wow, we're going to need to have a manufacturing system that can manufacture many of these balloons. We're going to need to have a mission control system that can keep track of the balloons. We're going to need to have an operations team that can launch these balloons and then recover them when they're ready to come down. So each piece of the process got to be bigger. It had to scale up. It was pretty challenging, getting the balloons to be more durable and more long-lasting. For a while, many of them leaked for some reason or another, and they would come down over the course of a few hours or a few days. It was like a detective job to figure out what was introducing tiny leaks. Now our balloons last over 100 days. At first, it would take us 3 or 4 days to tape together a balloon. Today, through our own manufacturing facility, the automated systems can get a balloon produced in just a few hours. We're getting close to the point where we can roll out thousands of balloons.
Thousands of balloons.
In the beginning, it was all we could do to launch 1 balloon a day. Now with our automated crane system, we can launch dozens of balloons a day for every crane we have. To steer 1 balloon left or right, you actually go up or down. And that's because in the stratosphere, the wind goes slightly different direction at a different altitude. To provide continuous internet service, you're talking a complex choreography where thousands of balloons are being steered and programmed all in an automated fashion. So another balloon is coming just at the right time to take its place of the one that left. Our mission control system allows us to track every balloon and lets us optimally position the balloons to provide coverage exactly where the people needing internet coverage are. We can track the location and projected trajectory of every balloon from the moment we launch it, on the way up till it reaches altitude, from the time we decide it's ready to bring it down, all the way down the descent till it's spot on the ground. With our system, we use LTE, which is a common protocol that most of the telcos around the world use. So anyone with a smartphone anywhere in the world will be able to get internet access. One of the key things we do is we partner with the local telco in every country. In New Zealand, we're partnering with Vodafone.
We like to think of ourselves as being very innovative in Vodafone New Zealand, so we thought this was a great partnership. Project Loon allows cell phone companies and internet providers to provide an internet to communities that don't have it. Ultimately, the goal of any internet service provider is to have 100% geographic coverage and all the capacity and speed that people expect. Project Loon will help deliver that.
If you look at the system today, it's amazing how much more advanced it is, from being 10 times higher data rate to the balloons lasting over 10 times as long, to the steerability of the balloons, We've flown in the tropics, we've flown in the Arctic regions. The technology is working. We're getting close to the point where we can bring the internet to people around the world.
And my age is 141 years old now.
You are 141 years old?
Right now.
So is your medicine make you live so long?
I mean, I have no sugar, I have no pressure, I have no heart attack, I have no pain. I know my farm, I do everything said in. Well, I work with the moon, and the moon is that give you like when the moon is kind of full and the new moon, they try to prepare your herbs, and before the moon full, then you will boil your herbs. So I work with humanity. I'm a healer through the power of the Most High. So I heal through the herbs and water. So no matter what the problem you have, there's something in the herbs for you. Because the Most High said, every leaves of the tree are healing of the nation. You know what I mean? So then we must attain ourselves to the herbs. Yeah, and the herb will heal us. Cramp, pain, and all of them something, the bad stomach. Because look, in year 2002, the doctor diagnosed me with cancer. Say I have cancer. And say if me, he say go cut me. And if me not cut me now live longer than 6 months, I may prove him wrong with my medicine. Me don't have no cancer. Because guess what? We all born with cancer cell. So when you say cancer, you're supposed to find the cause before the cure. What's the cause? Yeah, stress about something and burn up yourself.
Truth is hidden in a plain sight. As our Creator said, the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. If you want to discover the truth about your body, your temple, this ebook will unveil that for you. Become witness to your own healing.
It's a new dawn. It's a new day. It's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good.
If you had to guess, how many brands do you think are actually in the cereal aisle? Y'all ready for a throwback? In case you missed it. Well, you know me. Hit up the cereal aisle, snap some photos. So we'll walk our way down the aisle and see how many companies actually control this. Well, Cheerios is easy to start. Cheerios is General Mills. So we'll color all of the different types of Cheerios red for General Mills. But hold up. Turns out Chex is also General Mills. And so is Kix. And so is Cinnamon Toast Crunch. So far, the only spots that are not red are Winco's own brand name cereals. Looking down the aisle, this is where we left off. They also got Reese's Puffs, and also Cocoa Puffs and Tricks. Oh yeah, and they got Kix and Lucky Charms too. But hey, at least we got these natural cereals up here that are healthy. Psych! Those aren't healthy, and they ain't that natural, and those are owned by General Mills as well. But when I moved down the aisle, I found Kellogg. Cornflakes is Kellogg, and so are all of those cereals. But hey, at least we got this natural panda stuff and Kashi up here, keeping it real. Psych! Kashi is owned by Kellogg, baby. But this is its own deal, and we will talk about them at the end. They might be our only bastion of hope in the entire cereal aisle. We'll see. All right, we're gonna speed up and move down the line. This is more Kellogg stuff. But now we got Fruity Pebbles and Cocoa Pebbles, and yeah, that's right. All that shit's owned by Post. Still, except for that one little panda brand, all these gaps are just Winco's generic brands. Moved on down the line to the end of the Post section, and we found Captain Crunch. And Captain Crunch is owned by PepsiCo. But now we come to Quaker Oats up there. Turns out Quaker Oats owns Life cereal. Right on, we got a little bit of diversity in the end of the aisle. Psych! Guess who owns Quaker Oats, baby? Damn straight. End of the aisle is all PepsiCo, except for one asshole that put this box of General Mills cereal back in the wrong place. Shame on you. Shame. So in the cereal aisle, we got General Mills is red, Kellogg is blue, purple is Post, and orange is PepsiCo. Who do you think are the biggest stakeholders of those companies? That's right, baby. It is BlackRock and Vanguard at the top of all of those lists, with the exception of the Kellogg Foundation, which was set up a long time ago with a bunch of the shares of the founders. So when we look at who owns the biggest stake in all these brands, what does the cereal aisle actually look like? It looks like the BlackRock and Vanguard aisle. Except for that Panda cereal, which is Nature's Path. Family owned, great company. They actually sponsored me way back in the day when I made this video in the first place. Super dope company. They give a bunch of money to regenerative agriculture and to charities. Highly suggest that you support this company if you've got them in your grocery store. They're healthier. They're almost the exact same price as all the other cereals. And you're giving money to a real family-owned business that does good things with that money and supports a healthier, better food system for all of us.
I found this amazing mausoleum in the middle of the Romanian countryside. It looked like a cathedral in the middle of Dresden. I find this cafe. There's a couple women there all having some espresso. Bear and I go up and we're like, excuse me, ladies, do you know anything about this mausoleum? Do you know if anyone has the key? And this girl's like, oh yeah, we know who has the key. It's the husband of the woman who cuts foreheads. She's just right down the street. Excuse me? The woman who cuts foreheads? Oh yeah. And so the woman bends over and she shows her forehead and there's a cross cut, a scar right in her forehead. We say, oh, the woman who cuts foreheads. Okay, where does she live? 3 houses down. So we continue down the road and we knock on this rusty wooden door. It flies open and there is a man there. This man has purple sweatpants pulled up to his chest. He's got scabs all over his face, got a little like postman's cap on. And we say, hi, we're looking for the husband of the woman who cuts foreheads. And he's like, yes, it's me. Do you have the key to the crypt? And he goes, yes, I'm the crypt keeper. Can you go show us the crypt? I gotta feed my pigs and then we can go. Follow this old man up the street to the front gate, puts in this key that's the size of a fork. It screeches open. We go inside. It's this fantastical, again, European style crypt built to look like a church. We open it up. Another big key. There's like bats and there's pigeons swirling everywhere. It's incredible in there. We're talking to him asking, what's your role here? Why do you have the key? And he goes, well, actually, the key's been passed down for several generations. My family rings the bell when it needs to be rung. I'm like, oh, the bell still works? He goes, yeah, the bell still works. You want to see? There's 2 bell towers. One is destroyed. One is still there. So we go in this side passage. There's a staircase that spirals up this tower. There's a rope that comes down the middle. And he grabs it and he bong, bong, 2-3 times, bong, 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 12 times he rings the bell. So I say, okay, that's good. There's like bats flying around, everything. He's like, do you want to see the crypt? So we go downstairs underneath and there's like rats everywhere. And then we kind of finished exploring the crypt, the mausoleum, and there was still that one thing we kind of glossed over in the beginning, the woman who cut foreheads. I say to the crypt keeper, can we go meet your wife? I heard she's quite powerful and famous. And he says, yeah, she doesn't really like foreigners, but we can go see. And so we leave, but then something's changed because there's people kind of peeking out of the windows and looking up the doors and shutting them when we go by. Didn't think too much of it. But we get to his house again, open the door, and my friend Bear and the crypt keeper go in, and I'm behind. And then the woman screams, and she slams the door in my face. And then I hear screaming in Romanian. And I have no idea what's happening. After that, my friend Bear comes out. He goes, we have to go now. Did we offend somebody? I didn't know. He goes, no, you have to go. We have to go. You don't understand. We have to go. All right. So we run out. We get in this truck and we start driving. And I'm like, Bear, man, what happened? What did we do? We were polite. And he goes, no, you don't understand, man. How many times did you make him ring that bell? I make him ring he rang the bell 12 times. Did he say why he rung the bell? No, he just said his job was to ring the bell. Dude, they only ring the bell when someone dies. They thought there was a building that collapsed, that a school bus crashed. They thought there'd been a mass murder. You rang the bell 12 times, bro.
Alright, I hope you enjoyed our session. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you haven't already, please click the like and subscribe button. Thanks again for showing up, everyone, and I will see you around.